The colony hung in the sky like a silver bird, suspended over the glowing blue clouds of planet Veera. Its towers spiraled upward, reflecting the twin suns, while the walkways between them glimmered with energy shields. The aliens of this world were unlike anything a human had ever seen. Tall, lithe, and covered in translucent skin that shimmered with faint colors, they moved with grace, their limbs bending in ways that seemed impossible. For most of them, life was orderly and precise. Logic and routine guided everything they did. Ethan had arrived on Veora just a few weeks ago. At 10 years old, he was small, fragile by alien standards, and utterly human. The aliens had studied humans for decades, trying to understand their biology, their emotions, and their unpredictable nature. To them, humans were fragile, impulsive, and somewhat amusing. Yet there was something about Ethan that unsettled even the most logical of them. Xyler, an alien with violet-tinged skin and 3 long, delicate arms, was assigned as Ethan's nanny. Xyler had been chosen for her intelligence, her patience, and her reputation for handling even the most challenging of alien infants. A human child, she assumed, would be nothing difficult. Children were soft, weak, and easy to manage. But Ethan was different from the start. On the first day, Xyler watched as Ethan explored the nursery. While other human children might have hesitated in this strange environment, Ethan ran from one corner to the next, touching devices, pressing buttons, and examining alien toys with wide, curious eyes. One small robot rolled past him, and Ethan caught it midair, examining its wiring and circuits with a concentration no alien child had ever shown. "Impressive dexterity," Xyler murmured to herself, her voice a gentle hum that resonated like wind through crystal. Most of the aliens in the nursery were busy organizing schedules and feeding routines, ignoring the child. Yet Xyler couldn't. She couldn't look away. Ethan's fascination wasn't just with toys. He seemed to understand patterns in ways even Xyler didn't fully grasp. When a group of alien infants attempted to stack floating cubes, they tumbled every time, their limbs uncoordinated. Ethan observed for a moment, tilting his head, then reached out. In a few careful movements, he rearranged the cubes into a perfect floating pyramid. The aliens watching paused. Such problem-solving was considered advanced, even for older aliens. Xyler's mind whirred. Humans were supposed to be weak, yet this child showed not only physical coordination but mental sharpness far beyond expectation. She noted it silently, making observations she would later report to the council. Yet she also felt a strange sense of pride, as if the child belonged not just to his species but to the universe itself. By the 3rd day, the colony began to face small challenges. Machines designed to assist the infants occasionally malfunctioned. One day, a hover feeder, meant to deliver nourishment capsules, started spinning wildly. The alien infants screamed, their cries echoing across the nursery. Other alien nannies rushed forward, trying to stop the feeder, but its speed and unpredictability made it dangerous. Ethan, watching from a corner, did not panic. His eyes scanned the machine and he ran forward with surprising speed, jumping onto a console. With a series of small, precise movements, he pressed buttons and twisted levers in a pattern that no alien would have considered intuitive. Within seconds, the feeder slowed and finally stopped. It hovered quietly, harmlessly. Xyler's jaw nearly dropped. She stepped closer, her 3 arms folded in astonishment. "How?" she whispered, unable to finish the question. Ethan turned to her, grinning, and shrugged like it was the simplest thing in the world. The aliens in charge of the nursery gathered around, murmuring in their high-pitched musical language. "Child extraordinary," one said. Another shook its head. "Human, yes, but not weak at all." Xyler knelt beside Ethan. "You understand these machines better than most aliens twice your age," she said softly. Ethan merely smiled, brushing his hand over the feeder as if it were a toy. "It's just how I see things," he replied simply. That night, as the twin suns set and the nursery dimmed with soft, bioluminescent lights, Xyler watched Ethan sleep. There was a calm, almost eerie confidence in the way he breathed. She couldn't stop thinking about the events of the day. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but Ethan's unpredictability was not chaos. It was brilliance. She realized that the colony had underestimated humanity in a way no one had expected. Over the next week, Ethan's abilities became more evident. While other children struggled with gravity simulators, he adapted almost instantly, performing flips and maneuvers the aliens deemed dangerous. He solved energy puzzles, built contraptions, and even learned a few alien words in minutes, mimicking their tonal shifts perfectly. Xyler began taking careful notes, knowing that the council would want a report. Yet, she also began to feel a protective instinct toward the child. Ethan was small, yes, but he carried within him a spark of something far greater than any alien had anticipated. Then came the incident that would shock Xyler more than anything else. The nursery's central lift, a large platform designed to move infants safely between levels, malfunctioned during a routine transfer. The lift jolted violently, stopping midway with a group of young aliens trapped inside. Panic erupted immediately. Alien nannies shouted, running in circles, unsure what to do. Time was critical. The lift's emergency systems were slow and could fail under the stress. Xyler froze for a moment, scanning the situation. Her first instinct was to call for help, but Ethan had already moved. Without hesitation, he ran to the control panel. His small hands flew over buttons and levers, pulling and twisting with the kind of speed and precision that only humans seem to master instinctively. The lift shuddered, creaked, and began to tilt, but Ethan didn't stop. Xyler's 3 arms reached out instinctively, almost as if she wanted to intervene, but she couldn't. She had never seen anyone, alien or human, react with such clarity under pressure. Ethan climbed the side of the lift, balancing perfectly, and adjusted the main stabilizer. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the lift straightened, holding the infants safely inside. The room erupted into shocked gasps. Xyler's voice was barely audible. He saved them. Ethan climbed down, brushing his hands together as if he had just finished a simple chore. "They're okay now," he said, grinning at Xyler. The aliens who had doubted humans stared at him in awe. Their calculations, their machines, their centuries of technological advancement, all of it seemed secondary to the simple, fearless logic of a human child. That night, Xyler reflected on everything she had seen. She realized that humans were unpredictable, yes, but not in the chaotic way the aliens feared. They had creativity, courage, and a strange ability to see solutions where others saw none. Ethan was a living proof of that truth. She also felt a strange tension in her chest. Humans were small, fragile, yet here was one who could outthink, outmaneuver, and even save aliens older and stronger than him. What did this mean for the colony? For their understanding of other species, and for the humans themselves? Ethan slept peacefully, unaware of the stir he had caused. Xyler stayed by his side, her mind racing with possibilities. The council would want reports, yes, but she knew something deeper had happened today. Humanity, small and underestimated, had shown its first spark on Veura. And if this was just a child, what could the species achieve in time? As the night deepened, the colony's lights reflecting off the clouds below, Xyler made a silent vow. She would protect this child. She would watch him grow, not just for his safety, but because she knew, somehow, that humans like him were the key to something greater. Something the aliens had never expected, and perhaps something the galaxy had never seen before. For the first time in her long, measured life, Xyler felt awe. Not at a machine, not at technology, not at the perfection of logic, but at a human child. Ethan had no idea how remarkable he was, but Xyler would make sure the universe did not forget it. The nursery was quiet now, save for the soft hum of machines. But somewhere deep in the shadows, Ethan's spark of determination glowed brighter than ever. A spark that would not just illuminate his path, but the path of humanity in a galaxy that had always underestimated them. And Xyler, the alien nanny who had seen everything, could only watch in stunned silence. She had witnessed something unbelievable, and she knew this was only the beginning. The day began like any other on the floating colony of Veora. Twin suns rose slowly over the glimmering towers, casting long shadows across the walkways. Xyler walked beside Ethan, her 3 arms gently holding the child as he bounced with his usual curiosity. The colony had accepted his abilities with cautious amazement, but today would challenge them all in a way no one expected. The central hub of the colony, where energy flowed to every tower and every device, began to hum with unusual intensity. The aliens monitoring it noticed an irregular surge, a spike far beyond their predictions. Most dismissed it at first, assuming a minor glitch, but Xyler felt a knot in her mind. She had seen machines act unpredictably before, but something about the rhythm of this surge felt alive, almost deliberate. Ethan, oblivious to the adults' concern, ran ahead, his small feet pattering over the metallic walkway. "Look, Xyler, the lights are changing colors." "Why are they like this?" he asked, pointing at the glowing energy lines that arched like ribbons through the central hub. Xyler hesitated. "It's complicated," she said carefully. "These energy lines power the colony. If they become unstable, it could be dangerous for everyone." Ethan's eyes widened, but instead of fear, there was excitement. "Dangerous. I like dangerous," he said simply, dashing forward toward the central hub. Xyler caught him just in time, holding him close. "No, Ethan, this is not a game. You must be careful." But Ethan's curiosity could not be contained. He wriggled free and sprinted ahead, dodging startled aliens who were rushing to stabilize the hub. Xyler followed, her heart pounding. The colony's alarms began to ring, a sharp, shrill sound that echoed across every tower. Aliens shouted instructions, but their voices were lost in the chaos. The central hub was a massive chamber filled with floating platforms, moving energy conduits and towering control panels. Sparks danced across the surfaces as the energy surged, and the hum grew into a roar. Aliens worked frantically to stabilize the systems, but every adjustment seemed to make the problem worse. Ethan stepped forward, eyes scanning the panels. He noticed patterns in the lights, pulses that repeated in a strange sequence. Most aliens had no way of interpreting them quickly, but Ethan instinctively understood the rhythm. His fingers moved over the controls, pressing buttons and flipping levers with the speed and precision that had amazed Xyler before. The aliens froze, unsure if the child would make things worse. Xyler's heart leapt. She wanted to intervene, but every instinct told her to trust him. He had already shown an ability they did not understand. Ethan adjusted a sequence, watching the energy lines carefully. Sparks flew dangerously close, and a small platform wobbled under the strain. Yet he remained calm, his mind working faster than any simulation Xyler had ever seen. Within moments, one section of the energy grid stabilized. The hum softened slightly. "Good," Xyler whispered, almost in disbelief. But the relief was brief. The main conduit shuddered violently, threatening to overload completely. A wave of energy shot across the room, throwing several alien nannies off their feet. Some were injured, their limbs bruised or twisted by the sudden shock. Panic spread through the chamber. Ethan did not flinch. He ran to the main conduit, climbing the framework as if it were a jungle gym. His small hands twisted wires, redirected energy flows, and pushed panels with intuitive skill. Xyler watched, her mind struggling to keep pace. Every move he made was unconventional. Humans did not follow the same logic as aliens, but it worked. Slowly the energy began to stabilize. A group of young alien infants trapped on a moving platform cried out. Xyler's eyes widened. "Ethan, you must save them," she shouted. He nodded, leaping to the platform and securing the infants one by one. His movements were precise, yet gentle, showing a combination of courage and empathy that shocked even the most logical of aliens. The other aliens stopped their work, watching in awe. Many had trained for decades to handle such crises, but a human child, barely 10, was doing what they could not. Xyler felt a mixture of fear and pride. She had always respected human resilience, but this was beyond anything she had imagined. Ethan climbed back to the control panels, and with one final adjustment, the energy stabilized completely. The lights returned to their normal rhythm, and the hum of the machinery softened into a calm, steady pulse. The aliens cheered, though it was an awkward musical sound that reflected both relief and astonishment. Xyler approached Ethan, her 3 arms shaking slightly. You saved everyone," she said, her voice filled with awe. Ethan looked up at her, grinning. "I told you I like dangerous," he said simply, as if that explained everything. The aliens in charge of the hub gathered around, murmuring excitedly. "Child extraordinary," one said. Another shook its head. "Human, not weak." Not weak at all. Their calculations, their centuries of knowledge, their sophisticated technology, all seemed to pale in comparison to the raw intuition and courage of a single human child. Xyler knelt beside Ethan, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You are different from anyone I have ever met," she said softly. Ethan shrugged, as if it was the simplest thing in the world. "I just do what I think is right," he replied. For the next few hours, the colony worked to repair minor damages from the surge. Xyler stayed close to Ethan, observing him carefully. He helped where he could, not because he was told to, but because he wanted to. He fixed small devices, comforted frightened infants, and even redirected energy to parts of the colony that had been affected. Each action was thoughtful, precise, and unexpectedly clever. The Council of Elders called a meeting later that day. Xyler presented her observations, describing Ethan's abilities, his quick thinking, and his unusual understanding of complex systems. Many of the elders were skeptical. Humans were supposed to be weak and unpredictable. How could one child handle what dozens of trained aliens could not? But Xyler insisted. She recounted every detail. How Ethan had analyzed the energy surge, stabilized the hub, and rescued the infants without hesitation. By the end of her report, even the most skeptical elders could not deny the truth. Humans, they realized, had potential far beyond what they had assumed. That evening, as the colony settled under the soft glow of the twin suns' fading light, Xyler walked with Ethan across the floating platforms. "Do you understand what you just did?" she asked gently. Ethan shrugged. "I saved them," he said. "That's it." Xyler shook her head. "It's more than that. You showed courage, intelligence, and something else. Something I cannot describe. Humans, you are remarkable." Ethan smiled but did not fully understand the weight of her words. He was just a child, after all. Yet Xyler knew that what he had done would be remembered in the colony for a long time. That night, Xyler sat outside her quarters, reflecting on the events of the day. Humans had always been underestimated by alien civilizations. Their fragility, their small size, and their emotional unpredictability made them seem weak. But Ethan had proven that strength was not only physical. It was in courage, in quick thinking, and in the ability to act decisively when others faltered. Somewhere deep in the colony, energy monitors continued to flicker, showing signs of minor instability. Xyler knew the challenges were far from over. But she also knew that with humans like Ethan among them, the colony had a new hope, a force that could act in ways aliens never could. In her mind, she saw a future where humans were not underestimated, where their courage and ingenuity would become legendary. Ethan's small hands had stabilized the colony's main hub, saved countless lives, and shown aliens that bravery and intelligence were not confined to species or size. And as she watched Ethan sleep later that night, a small smile crossed Zyler's face. The child's spark was more than impressive, it was transformative. The colony would never be the same again, and perhaps neither would the galaxy. For the first time, Zyler felt true awe at humanity's potential. Not at their technology, not at their logic, but at the courage and resilience that lived in a human child. And she knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, Ethan awoke with his usual boundless energy. Zyler was ready, watching closely. The energy grids of the colony were still delicate, but the human's presence and Ethan's extraordinary ability offered hope. Today, she thought, would bring another test. And she was eager to see how far this small human could go. The colony of Veora buzzed with tension that morning. The twin suns had barely risen over the glimmering towers, yet alarms rang throughout the central hub. Zyler's violet-tinted skin shimmered faintly under the rising light as she rushed with Ethan toward the control center. A major energy spike had been detected, a surge far beyond the previous day's incident. This time, the threat was not just a glitch, it could destabilize the entire colony. Ethan's small feet pattered across the walkway, and yet his expression was calm, almost serene. He had learned quickly that panic achieved nothing. Zyler followed, her three arms steadying him when he darted forward, eyes fixed on the energy streams that arched and pulsed like glowing rivers. The central hub was chaotic. Floating platforms swung dangerously, wires arced with sparks, and alien technicians moved frantically, shouting instructions. The energy surge threatened to blow out the conduits that powered the colony. Zyler realized immediately that the situation was more dangerous than anything they had faced before. Ethan paused for a moment, tilting his head as he observed the patterns of energy. Unlike the aliens, who relied solely on calculations and data, Ethan seemed to understand the energy intuitively. He ran to the main control panel, ignoring the flurry around him, and began pressing buttons and adjusting levers with a fluid precision that no alien could replicate. "Child, stop! It's too dangerous!" shouted one of the senior technicians, but Ethan did not hesitate. Zyler's heart raced as she watched him climb onto a hovering platform to reach a control node. Sparks flew dangerously close to his small hands, yet he worked as if the electricity were nothing more than sunlight warming his fingers. Slowly, the energy lines began to respond to his interventions. The pulse of the surge lessened, but the main conduit still threatened to overload. Zyler's three arms stretched instinctively, ready to assist, but she held back. Ethan's intuition was beyond what she could comprehend. She realized that if she intervened, she might disrupt his delicate adjustments. The alien infants, who had been moved to safety, cried out in fear as the platform shook violently. Ethan glanced at them briefly, his expression softening. Without missing a beat, he adjusted a stabilizer, allowing the platform carrying the infants to settle gently. The aliens who watched were stunned. They had trained for decades to handle crises, yet this small human child was saving lives with an ease they could barely understand. Zyler's mind raced. Humans were always underestimated, and this child had proven it yet again. She remembered the first incident with the hover feeder and the lift. This time, however, the stakes were higher, the danger far greater, and still, Ethan remained calm, focused, and brilliant. Suddenly, a massive surge hit the main conduit. Sparks erupted like fireworks, throwing several technicians off balance. The lights flickered and dimmed, creating a moment of panic. Zyler's pulse quickened. She wanted to scream at him to stop, to move away, but Ethan was already there. With careful hands, he redirected the energy through a secondary channel, one the aliens had never considered. The surge that could have destroyed the hub instead split harmlessly, stabilizing the system. The humming of the machinery softened into a steady rhythm and the lights returned to normal. The aliens froze in silence for a moment, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. Xyler stepped forward, her voice trembling with awe. "Ethan, you've saved the colony again. You did the impossible." Ethan smiled faintly, brushing his hands together as if he had merely finished a chore. "It was just what needed to be done," he said simply. His words were small, but the impact was enormous. Word of Ethan's actions spread quickly through the colony. The Council of Elders, who had been skeptical of humans, convened an emergency meeting. Xyler presented her observations, detailing every moment of Ethan's quick thinking, his intuitive understanding of the energy systems, and his bravery under pressure. Some elders were hesitant. "He is only a child," one argued. "Surely his abilities are limited to luck and coincidence." Xyler shook her head firmly. "It is not luck. Humans think differently. Ethan sees patterns others cannot. He acts when others hesitate. He is extraordinary." The council listened in silence, their expressions a mixture of shock, disbelief, and wonder. Never before had a human demonstrated such skill, courage, and instinct. Never before had one child held the lives of an entire colony in his hands and succeeded. That evening, the colony gathered in the main plaza to honor Ethan's actions. Unlike traditional ceremonies, which focused on hierarchy and status, this was a celebration of courage, intelligence, and ingenuity. Xyler stood beside him, her 3 arms folded with pride. The young human had not sought recognition, but he accepted it with quiet dignity. Aliens approached him, hesitant at first, offering gestures of respect. Some bowed in the traditional way, others extended glowing hands in greeting. Ethan smiled at each, acknowledging their admiration without arrogance. He was just a child, yet he carried himself with the confidence of someone who had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. During the ceremony, Xyler reflected on humanity's underestimated potential. Humans were small, fragile, and often dismissed as weak. Yet here was a living example that courage and intellect were not measured by size or species. Ethan had shown that even the smallest human could make a difference that spanned an entire civilization. As the celebration continued, Ethan wandered to a quiet corner, examining a small energy panel for curiosity's sake. Xyler followed, smiling. "You never stop, do you?" she asked. Ethan looked up at her with wide, earnest eyes. "There's so much to see, so much to fix, so much to understand," he said simply. Xyler nodded, understanding that his mind would always seek challenges, always push boundaries. Humans were not satisfied with the ordinary, they sought the extraordinary. Over the next few days, Xyler observed how the aliens' perception of humans began to change. Other children, once dismissed as fragile and incapable, were treated with respect. Scientists consulted humans for insights, and engineers watched them solve problems in ways that defied conventional alien logic. Ethan's actions had opened the door to a new understanding, a recognition that humans, despite their size, had strength and ingenuity that could not be ignored. Xyler spent time teaching the colony about human reasoning, using Ethan as an example. She explained how humans approached problems differently, instinctively, creatively, and often with courage that defied expectation. The aliens listened, fascinated, realizing that their previous assumptions about humans had been flawed. One afternoon, while walking across the suspended platforms of the colony, Ethan noticed a small crack in the main energy conduit. Without hesitation, he climbed the framework and adjusted it, preventing what could have been another dangerous surge. Xyler watched in awe. The humans' ability to notice what others overlooked, to act quickly and decisively, was astounding. That evening, Xyler sat beside Ethan as he gazed at the twin suns setting over the colony. "You've changed how they see humans," she said softly. "Because of you, they will never underestimate your kind again." Ethan smiled faintly. "I didn't do it to be seen. I just do what I think is right," he said, Xyler nodded, realizing that this was a defining trait of humans. They acted out of courage and morality, not just logic or fear. The colony slowly returned to normal, but the change was permanent. Aliens no longer viewed humans as fragile or unpredictable. They were seen as capable, clever, and brave. And all of this began with one small child, whose heart and mind were bigger than anyone could have imagined. Xyler reflected on the events of the past days. She had come to Veora expecting a simple assignment: care for a human child. Instead, she had witnessed the extraordinary, seen humanity's potential firsthand, and felt a deep, undeniable pride. Humans were more than they appeared. They were resilient, inventive, and capable of greatness. As Ethan lay in his quarters that night, exhausted but smiling, Xyler watched over him. She knew this was only the beginning. The child's journey would continue, and with it, the perception of humanity across the stars would shift. One small human had proven that courage and intelligence could change the course of an entire civilization. For the first time in her long life, Xyler felt true awe at the potential of a species she had underestimated. Humans were small, yes, but they carried a spark that could ignite change across galaxies. Ethan had shown it, and she knew that this spark would grow, touch countless lives, and leave an impact far greater than anyone could predict. The colony slept under the soft glow of bioluminescent lights, the twin suns, last rays fading into night. But somewhere, deep within the energy lines and the hearts of those who had witnessed the events, a new understanding was born. Humans, no matter their size or age, were not to be underestimated. They were capable of heroism, brilliance, and acts that would leave even the most advanced civilizations in awe. Ethan slept peacefully, unaware of the legacy he had begun to create. Xyler stayed close, her mind filled with hope and wonder. The child had shown the universe that being human was more than fragile flesh and small size. It was courage, intelligence, and an unyielding spirit that could face the impossible and succeed. And in the quiet night of Veora, under the stars and the soft hum of energy, Xyler smiled, knowing that she had witnessed something unforgettable. A human child had done the unbelievable, and the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again.